The reason why I like to harp on the word change is because people focus on the narcissist changing. Narcissists change all the time for everybody, over and over and over again. Okay, change is not what you're actually seeking. So part of it is the word choice, because change oftentimes is this exterior development, this behavioral modification, this outside piece that's getting shifted and adjusted just slightly so that he looks more acceptable in your eyes. Will a narcissist change for someone that he loves? Interesting question, and I want to break it down in a couple different ways. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. My goal is not just to provide you hope of, look, he's changed. Let me wait around till my narcissist changes, which we're going to talk about some today. And my goal is for you to understand narcissistic abuse, to understand some of the abuse that you've been in, to understand some of the confusing situations and the trauma bond, the addiction, the incessant pull back to a toxic person that you don't know how to get out of, and be able to walk through how I help liberate women from toxic narcissistic relationships. Now, I need you to understand, again, that my goal is not to just provide this hope piece. My goal first is for you to understand all this, but then second, I want you to understand when you look and you evaluate your relationship, if you don't see honesty, if you don't see vulnerability, so like emotional pieces brought in, and if you don't see this consistent change and development from him, leave. Stop wasting your time with someone that doesn't care about himself and doesn't care about you. Like, I can't be any clearer than this. And oftentimes you will not see a narcissist have those three traits: honesty, vulnerability, and consistent change. If you don't see that, run. Find someone that actually cares about himself and actually cares about you in a positive and a helpful way, where he's working on developing and growing himself and becoming an honest person every single day. If you don't see that, run. Okay, don't waste your time with toxicity hoping that it gets better. Just start focusing on finding connection and love with a healthy person. All right, so let's dive into this place of narcissist. Like, will he change for someone that he loves? First, we need to establish what is this piece of love that we're talking about inside of a toxic relationship, because your version of love and his version of love are probably pretty different. Now, let me explain. In my relationship with Kayla, like growing up, I had this piece of thinking and viewing love about a certain way. So when I got into this relationship with her, like I viewed love in this piece of it being control. Now, growing up, I was involved with this girl back in high school, and this piece from high school and college that we kind of interacted, developed some type of relationship, there's this piece that as she got more independent, I felt like I was losing control over her. And so it was scary for me. I was like, oh no, she's going to leave. She's going to find another guy. So I tried to tighten my grip. And I thought this was love. I thought this piece was, well, if I know where she is, then I keep her safe. If I know where she is, then I love her. Like all these different pieces. And all it did was it ended up being very restrictive over her. Like it ended up like squeezing the life out of her. And she was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And rightfully so, because of how I was showing up. But how I viewed love at this point was I viewed it as being in control. Like controlling another person, manipulating them, knowing exactly where they are, having them report in, like making, like tick, 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 like there's this check boxes. And so inside of my relationship with Kayla, my version of love was control. That's what I thought. That's what I grew up believing. That's what I grew up thinking. Now, did I have this conscious thought? Love equals control. No, I didn't think that. That's just how I operated. So I'm saying this to have you kind of consider first that your narcissist in your life might have a different definition and version of love than you. So you first need to evaluate that. What is his version of love versus your version of love? You might be thinking, will he change to love me? Well, he might already be loving you in his version. That doesn't mean it's acceptable or loving. And that also doesn't mean that he's doing the best he can. Whew, that's a phrase that I really do hate, because oftentimes people use this as an excuse of like, well, he's just loving me the best that he can. And to be quite frank, that's bullshit, because it's not just the best he can, it's the best he's willing to do. It's not, oh, he can't do any better, because that's 100% wrong. If he couldn't do any better, then he would be toxic to you, to his family, to his coworkers, to his parents, to everyone in his life. But imagine this, and look at this, he's not. He's typically just toxic to you or a select few people. And so when you think of, well, it's just the best he can, that's a cop-out to make yourself feel better. But no, he's just choosing to not care and to not love. He knows how to, and he's willing to do it with certain people, but it's typically just a means to an end. It's not true love and true connection. So First off is just understand you might have a different version of love than what you're ascribing to the toxic person. He might have a different version of love than you. You might have a different version of love to him. So we need to find an establishment of what is love to you. What does it actually mean? What does it actually look like? Because your version might not be what he's actually thinking, saying, or doing. Okay. Then we move into this piece of change. Will the narcissist change for someone that he loves? Easy answer is yes. Wait a second. Did I just say yes to change? Yeah, I did. And you need to understand this. A narcissist oftentimes will modify and change what they're doing for the person that they're with. Notice I didn't say for the person they love, okay, because their definition might be completely different. They will oftentimes change and modify what they're doing, how they're showing up, how they're acting, how they're behaving to get you. Okay, first off, you're going to see this at the beginning of the relationship with love bombing, right? Changing how they're interacting, changing how they're showing up, changing and giving all this positive reinforcement, this positive things, this incessant gifts, connection, texting back and forth, trying to make you feel like you are the center of the universe and you are up on a pedestal. Then it switches, then it changes up. But this piece here at the beginning, they're changing for you. Same way as they change for the next person, they change for the next person. Narcissists oftentimes will modify parts of their personality, modify how they show up, modify how they look to be able to get the girl, to be able to get the person that they want to get. So as a result, he changes his personality style to be able to be the most attractive character for you. This is happening all the time. Narcissists are changing for different people in different scenarios. This is why he'll act a certain way to you, then his friends come over and he acts completely different. Then his coworkers show up and he acts completely different. Then his boss shows up and he acts different. Doesn't mean he has split personalities or he has a personality disorder of like, oh, he's switching back and forth to different versions of himself or different alters. What this means is he's just modifying his perception to certain people so that he can look good. Inside of this, understand he is changing. The toxic guy in your life is probably changing at a very rapid pace, maybe sometimes where you don't even see it. Simply because he's morphing and modifying and then gaslighting you into believing that he's not actually changing. Now, this gets confusing when you start talking through this piece of like, well, I want him to change. Because sometimes you will see slight modification. You'll see, hey, can you change this? And he changes it. But then a week later, it's reverted back. And you think, wait, I thought we talked about this. Can you change this? And he changes it. And then he reverts back. You'll see this all the time with the narcissist that does say that they're sorry. Not apologizes, but says that they're sorry. Oftentimes he'll say that he's sorry and do the same thing. This is the same way as him slapping you in the face and then saying, sorry. And then he does it another day. He slaps you again, then it's like, sorry. And then he slaps you again, and then he says, sorry. At the end of the day, you start to not believe his sorry. That's because he's not really sorry. And so he keeps doing it over and over and over. There's no actual changed behavior to the place that actually sticks long term. Now, the reason why I like to harp on the word change is because people focus on the narcissist changing. Narcissists change all the time for everybody, over and over and over again. Okay, change is not what you're actually seeking. So part of it is the word choice, because change oftentimes is this exterior development, this behavioral modification, this outside piece that's getting shifted and adjusted just slightly so that he looks more acceptable in your eyes. The problem is change is typically drawn from the outside. He's changing something for you. He's changing something for his image. He's changing something for his money. Like there's this external piece. The reason why I don't like the word change is because narcissists do it all the time and they do it to manipulate. What I like to be able to call it is, will a narcissist transform? When we talk through this piece of transformation, it is going from one thing to something completely different. It's going from a circle to going to a triangle. Like it's going from one direction to another completely different. Versus when we talk about change, we can just modify different things. Like let's say we can modify a direction of a shape. We can modify a direction that something's pointing. But to actually transform it means it comes into a completely different sphere, completely different aspect. Narcissists change all the time, but do they transform? Why? Because transformation has to come with a couple different things. One, it has to be internal. It has to be something that regardless of you, he's going to transform his life. Whether you leave or whether you stay, he's going to continue to move down this path for him, for no one else, but for his own mental, emotional, spiritual transformation. The second thing is transformation has to come from truth. No truth, no transformation. Unless a person is honest, no transformation can actually happen. It has to come from the inside out and it has to be based on truth. The other piece inside of transformation and inside of this piece of truth happens to be that truth typically comes from God. And so as a result, if you don't have God, if you don't have truth, and if you don't have transformation, nothing is going to change, modify, or develop in your relationship with the toxic guy, and it's going to continue happening over and over and over in a negative way. So I want you to understand, you don't want to be looking for a narcissist to change. They do all the time. You want to be looking for a narcissist to transform. And to know that for sure, one, it needs to be done long term, and two, it needs to be done regardless of you. If you walked away and you left the relationship and you said, I'm completely done, we're divorced, I'm never coming back, and he drops out of therapy in the next 2 weeks, doesn't sound like he was actually doing any transformational work. Just sounds like he was changing for you to keep you. This is what we'll see a lot of times with guys that come to the program. They'll come, then they'll want to work with me, and I'll talk to them, and they're like, yeah, I just want to change for her. Like, I just want to work on myself so I can keep her, so I get her back. And I'm like, then you're in the wrong place, because I don't work with guys like that. Because I want you to know, if you don't transform who you are right now, it doesn't matter. She won't be around. You won't be in another relationship. The next relationship will fail. It will continue to happen because until you transform you, nothing will change. If you're a narcissist and you're listening to some of my content, or you're just a man that's been a liar or a cheater, you can't figure out how you've screwed up your life, and you're wondering, how do I actually fix this? Go to rawmotivations.com. Click on the one-on-ones. There's a link there for men. Because I want to be able to help support narcissists that are actually struggling with this. How do we actually heal with this? How do we actually move forward? So I've built a program to be able to help with this. Oftentimes people are like, why don't you offer it to narcissists? I do offer it to narcissists. I just don't advertise it a ton because most narcissists don't resonate and don't reach out. But if you're listening today and you do resonate with some of the stuff that I'm saying, with the stuff that we're talking through of change versus transformation, and you actually want to transform, not just change, then go to rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones, click, hey, I'm a man, and it'll walk you through this whole process of filling out an application to work with me inside this piece of narcissism. Showing up as a liar, as a cheater, as an abuser, whatever you identify as inside of this toxic piece, this toxic bubble, that's what I work with. If you're interested in that, go to rawmotivations.com today.